Report session done by Promo Republic. It's a really going to be a different chat today. I'm looking forward to it. So let's just get into it real quickly. So you can scan the code here as well. So it's the #1 community for innovative franchise marketers, the MOP Talks community. So a lot of good content there, very unique content as well, because there's a lot of general marketing talk, but nothing really much for franchise specific marketing. So a great community to join. Now, before we get on with today and the panel, I'll just introduce you to Alex from Promo Republic, who's organised this. So Alex, do you want to just run through what you do real quickly for everyone?
Joel, thank you so much for the kind introduction. For those of you who do not know me yet, my name is Alex Harbinyoff, and I'm the Senior Franchise Consultant at Promo Republic. Currently working with a little bit over 90 franchise brands globally, and helping the brands meet and exceed their local marketing goals. For those tuning in for the very first time for a CMO Peer Talks, or for those who are not aware of what Promo Republic really is, we're at the forefront of helping franchise systems to evolve and enhance their online visibility and engagement through intuitive local marketing tools, proprietary data analytics, and visualization. Our core competencies are centered around location leaderboards, local social media marketing, enhancing and growing online reviews and brand reputation, and growing the overall online findability for each and every franchisee in local search. If you sense that there's an area of improvement across any of those pillars for your brand's local digital marketing presence, let's connect for a brief consultation session in the near future. I'm excited to connect, and I will be sharing my contact information in the Zoom chat shortly. Thank you, and we have an exciting panel lined up, and I'll be passing the stage back over to Joel.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex. Cool. So if you don't know me, my name is Joel Kleber. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of the Gyms Group. We've got around 5,500 franchisees now, net 2,000 franchisee growth last 5 years, large part due to short form content and video content as well. So feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I post every day about this sort of stuff, and you can see what we do as well. But less about me. The most important thing is the panels we've got today, because we've got some really unique speakers, which I think will help everyone here who works in franchising. So Glenn, if you work in franchising, we know Glenn in the Australian market most likely. He's the founder of Magnetic Business Media, a franchise-centric video production company. Glenn also specializes in helping franchisees communicate effectively through video with extensive experience in the franchising sector. He's developed innovative strategies to enhance brand consistency and boost local engagement across multi-location businesses. So if you are in franchising in Australia, you'll know who Glenn is. So I don't need to do much of the introduction there as well. And then Melissa. So Melissa, you might not be familiar with. So Melissa is the founder of Oysterly. But Melissa is the founder and managing director of a leading social video agency based in Singapore that specializes in creating UGC content for brands. Melissa's also been recognized as a woman to watch in Asia. Melissa was also shortlisted for the Women Leading Tech Awards by Atlassian. Her expertise in social media strategy and content creation has positioned her as a thought leader in the industry. Now, the reason why we suggested Melissa to come on this, because Melissa's done some stuff with our Gyms Dog Wash division in terms of trying to train them in short form content creation. Melissa does a lot of short form content creation for a lot of big brands. So a lot of really good insights that you'll learn from Melissa today as well. So she's got a lot of knowledge, and we're lucky to have her on board. So let's get straight into it. So this is the agenda. The 3 main dot points we'll cover today, with some other questions as well. How does content fit into franchise marketing, and how do you see it changing in 2025? What tools or support do franchisees need for effective content, and how do you make sure their content aligns with the brand? And what lessons did you learn from franchise content in 2024, and what will you try in 2025? And then we'll have some Q&A at the end as well. So let's get straight into it. So Glenn, for the first one here, how does content marketing fit into, you're not owner of a franchise, but you work with so many franchise brands. So how does it fit into their marketing currently, and where do you see it going in 2025?
Yeah, thanks, Joel. I mean, we've worked with hundreds of franchise brands over the years. So we started back in 2011 with predominantly a lead generation platform called Franchise Buyer. But that has very much, and I've seen it in my business change over the years, has very much turned away from being a lead generation issue, people coming to us for lead generation. Now, primarily, the biggest thing we do is people coming to us for content creation. I think the changing landscape that we're seeing in content for franchises moving into 2025 is more around authentic journeys, storytelling for franchises, what franchisees get up to. And that includes, from a local area marketing perspective, what your franchisees are doing in their local area to support the customers and grow their customer base. So I see a lot more of that, and it's highly necessary. And I think as far as content marketing fitting into the marketplace for franchise brands, it's figuring out how you can tap in and leverage those franchisees at a local level to enable them and help them to connect with their customers at that local level. You can do all your macro stuff, but going forward from now and even to 2025, I think it's really empowering franchisees to connect to their local market through great content. And you really are the engine for that, to give them the systems and the process to make that as easy as possible, because they mostly, for the most part, they won't know.
Awesome. Before I just want to go to Melissa, then, Glenn, I just want to ask you real quickly. You mentioned something in there about being more authentic. Now, this is something we see online, and it's a very, wishy-washy thing. Every brand says, "Oh, we want to be more authentic." So, what does that mean in regards to franchising?
I think people overcomplicate it. I always say I think people overcomplicate content creation and e-messaging in franchising. We always do. And being authentic is simply just being yourself. And it's being yourself, having normal conversations. And you talk about it a lot, Joel, when I see you comment on LinkedIn a lot on communication that comes out from franchisors that just looks canned, it looks staged, looks scripted and pre-prepared. People can smell that a mile away. They can see it, they can smell it. Going forward, people, I think, are increasingly more and more skeptical in our entire world across all communication spectrums. And it's going to become even more skeptical when people know that people are using AI and those sorts of tools to actually, it might not even be a person you're looking at talking on that video right now, or the actual person. So authenticity is about being yourself, and you can't, and in many ways, from a coaching perspective of franchisees in local area marketing, they can't be themselves if they're not comfortable on camera. So I think there's going to be a lot going forward in helping and teaching and training franchisees and coaching them to be comfortable with being themselves and putting their messaging, and for franchisors to, I don't know, like you would know, to release the shackles a little bit to allow franchisees to actually express themselves and their thoughts and opinions, because after all, they're experts in their local area. They're experts at what they do every single day.
You're 100%. I think the big thing 2025 is franchisors and head office letting go and giving some guidelines, but letting franchisees have a bit more ownership over that sort of stuff. Now, Melissa,
and that comes with risk.
It does. Yep.
That's just going to be something you have to balance and manage.
100%. Now, Melissa, you're our short form content expert for today, and you did a great seminar. I remember back in the day for our Jim's Dog Wash franchisees. This was more than a year ago, showing them how to, create videos for TikTok using CapCut and stuff like that. But in regards to this question here, do you want to just provide some thoughts on this?
Yeah, sure. So I'll just jump on the back of Glenn. And I think when I think about authentic is leading on to what Glenn said, it's just about having like a conversation, like a really friendly conversation with someone. And we're in a world of like so much opportunity now. And like when you scroll on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, I'm sure you've seen those videos where people are filming in their car, their parked car, they're walking on the street. There's so many of these different styles of videos. And the reason why they're popular is because they're authentic. Or another term that we use at Oysterly is lo-fi. And we work with some of the biggest brands, Microsoft, 3M, Hilton, etc. And there's a big trend to move towards this style of content. So gone are the days of this like really polished sort of influencer content. I mean, it's still there, but it's really shifting into this more sort of authentic or lo-fi content. So I think this poses a huge opportunity to everyone here, because all you really need is your phone and a cheap camera stand. You can get a camera stand from Amazon or probably Kmart or somewhere else for like $25. You don't need to spend a lot of money. And you just got to get the reps in and start filming. And no one is born with a phone in their hand. Everyone has to learn, and you just get better at filming and filming. And so the way that I think about, these platforms is just choose one and then you can expand and just get the reps in and you'll get better. And it's a great way for you to really get your voice out and really build your business and own personal brand as well. But there's just so much opportunity now. So it's a really exciting time.
Yeah, I tell people if they want an example, check out, I'm being biased, with the Jim's Group TikTok account. I do a lot of Q&As with Jim, where I chuck a phone in Jim's face and we answer all the trolls and stuff like that. And it's not just about franchising, it's about anything. And some of those videos, one the other day, what does Jim spend his money on, had 125,000 views. And we've had people come into training say, it's because of those videos where he talks about his values and stuff, which got me into training, which is a simple Q&A, which takes me 20 seconds to do, but generates a 30 grand, 40 grand sale. So we do that a lot. And the other thing as well is, I'll give you another good example. Like we have a lot of unserviced leads. Literally, I'll put up a report on the screen, have my phone, go over the unserviced lead report on there, and they'll get 20,000 views. then you have people go, geez, I didn't know there's that much work in gyms. With a
Yeah.
phone video, which took me 30 seconds to do, and I can reach that many people really quickly. Whereas the traditional way of doing it, as Glenn would know, can't do that, can't show that, blah, 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 blah. So it's a massive opportunity, as you both have said, for brands to do a little bit something a little bit different.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think yeah, on the back of it, it's funny, you know, when we I just did a session when we were over with a conference, and I did a content marketing session at a conference in Vegas recently for an Australian franchise brand, and we were teaching the master franchise, the regional masters, how to create content with their franchisees, but in turn teaching their franchisees how to create content with their customers. And there's an assumption of knowledge that everyone has, that everyone knows what they're doing. But I was telling you off camera before, Joel, is that people are coming up to me saying things like, okay, so how do I post this on LinkedIn? What should I do? How do I put the video in? Do I put a link in? That everyone assumes so much knowledge that really the challenge is that it's people like us and social media agencies and everything that probably overcomplicate some stuff and make it look harder than it actually is. But phone, good lighting, you're right, Melissa, just get it there and start with something and get moving. Because what I've said to those guys there was the hardest thing to do is to create your first video. And once you do your first video, you just start rolling. My first video is terrible. I looked back 10 years ago, I've got shaky camera, I've got all sorts of stuff going on, but you have to start somewhere. And the key with great short form video when you're interviewing people and talking to people is simply just making people feel comfortable, being authentic, making them feel comfortable. And I always say that the number one question that I always ask that changes the tone of everything in anything I do, whether it be a customer or a franchise owner, whatever it is with a smile on my face to say, what do you love about what you do? And that instantly changes the tone of anything, because people just start, I don't know, being authentic and saying, I really love supporting my customers. I love doing this stuff. Can you imagine if you had 100 franchise owners with 100 customers saying, I just love supporting my customers and everything. It's such powerful content that you can start getting out there.
So 2025, more phones, obviously empower franchisees to do it, is the way to go. So the next point here, what tools or support do franchisees need for effective content? So with this one, Melissa, and how do you make sure their content aligns with the brand? So Melissa, I'll throw this one to you because you did this training for our Jim's Dog Wash franchisees with TikTok. So do you want to run through a little bit about that and sort of what your thoughts around this are?
Okay, so I think just to make it really simple, I'll just give you some actionable tips. It is overwhelming, right? It's overwhelming to try and be on every platform. And this is not only for like small, medium business owners, but even large companies struggle at this. So just choose a platform and do it well. And I also think, just be prepared that your first 60 videos, maybe 90 videos are not going to get any views. I remember when I started posting on TikTok, they were getting like 100 views. Just be okay with that. The third thing is just absorb yourself in video content and just watch what other people are doing, other industries, etc., and learn. That's personally what I did. And then another tip here is have a look at your most common questions that you get and start to answer those. And I know that you do that really well, Joel. You get questions, just start to answer them. I think that would be really, really powerful. Also, TikTok, Instagram are really powerful search platforms. And I know, I'm an Aussie, but I live out here in Singapore. I can see it's very different out here in the Asia market, and it's moving at a really rapid pace. So if you can create videos that answer people's questions, or go into ChatGPT or look at Google and say, what are the top common questions about dog grooming, or getting my house painted, or whatever it is, and just that's a really good starting point. And it's going to help your videos also potentially rank for SEO if you're answering those questions as well. So I think that they would be sort of the core things that I would really think about doing just to help set yourself up for success.
And what about the alignment of brand?
Yep. So with the alignment of brand, I would just think about what are the common things. Like I think most frequently asked questions, just think about your brand and the common questions that people are asking would be a really good starting point. Second to that, also think about like behind the scenes, people want to see personality as well. So that's how you can really help humanize your brand and really show that human touch as well. So they're two really big things that I would consider, but definitely the questions that you get is a really big one and very powerful on those platforms.
And real quickly, you mentioned search. So obviously most people on here will be familiar with SEO, but obviously I think I saw a report where it said 50% of Gen Z or something like that, younger people who are going to TikTok to search for how to solve problems or over other search engines. So is there any sort of advice regarding to optimizing those videos for social search?
Yeah, look, I can tell you now, I hosted a panel the other month with someone from TikTok on there, and you know, I've seen the changes on the platform. They're going really hard after search. They're actually testing search ads in the US at the moment, but this is on TikTok. So you want to be using sort of keywords in your videos. So keywords are just words that people could be searching for, and then essentially, like when you go onto TikTok and you search, you can search at the top there. You know, it could be like best places to travel or how to trim my dog or whatever it is.
Yeah.
People search like that now, and it's just changing the game, because when you go onto Google, and I talk about this at conferences, and I show this example, it's a complete mess. There's a lot of ads at the top. It's like all these highly optimized websites that lead to poor websites, where you can go onto TikTok and it's very visual, it's short, it's authentic, and a very different style of content to search. So you're going to see really big plays, not only from TikTok, but also across Meta. They're doing really big things as well. So I wouldn't underestimate the power of Instagram. It's a hugely powerful platform as well.
Absolutely. What about you, Glenn, from your perspective?
As far as tools and support for franchisees for effective content, I'd start by giving them a really clear and simple framework. And I think you've got to give them topics and examples of content to create. So yours is a great. I actually use your YouTube channels quite a bit, Joel, as good examples.
I'll take the referral. You give me a commission when you get clients from it as well.
No, there's none at all. No, that doesn't exist. But there's I think, you know, we're all creatures of, we need to be able to often be able to see something and model it, right? So that can be the best way to do it. As far as a tool goes for a franchisee, you work out. The hardest thing I always found with doing content with any franchise banner franchisee, we would do content for years ago. We would have 5 articles in a package. We'd get to the 3rd article in and they'd say, what should we write about next? And so it's always the problem is that. So that goes even right down to marketing teams within franchise brand at the time, is because they're not in that space. So if you're in the space, you need to help and guide people and guide franchisees to give them a list, or brainstorm with them, or brainstorm with a group of franchisees at your conference or at your get-togethers. Okay, what could we create content on? Let's do a list. Let's break it down into these segments and create content in these 12 different categories. And here are the topics we could do. And that's what I did at that conference in Vegas recently. We did a brainstorm and came up with 50 how-to videos. So then they're all suddenly getting ideas about, okay, we could create these videos. And then you show them an example. I say, well, here's where these guys are doing it in the US like this. This is where they're doing it in Australia like this. So then you start doing, and what I believe you'll get out of that is you'll get momentum. You'll get 3 or 4 franchisees out of maybe 40 or 50 who will be absolute guns. And you've seen this, Joel, who will run with it and go with it, and they will trailblaze, and they will set the momentum for the entire network. So I think it's about finding those diamonds in the rough out of those franchise partners who are going to take this and run with it. You can work really closely with them. And as far as brand alignment goes, you can actually work with them on brand alignment and start saying, okay, because like this, do that, other franchisees will see them doing that and doing it certain ways. You'll almost be starting to create this malleable brand alignment in these social platforms. So I think involving franchisees on that journey is hugely important.
Yeah, it's great to hear that. Yeah, I'll just quickly tell what we do at Gyms, which is similar to what you do, Glenn. So every 3 weeks, we have anywhere from 90 to 120 new franchisees, and I do the social media and AI section, and I basically show them all the examples. I show them how to use ChatGPT to get content ideas, all that sort of stuff, and that's actually a film session we have available on internet as well. But beyond that, we obviously have an intranet where I do a whole heap of Loom walkthroughs, show them how to record video, all that sort of stuff as well. So there's no excuses. But out of the 100 people you teach in the room, you only expect 2 or 3 to run with it. But the ones who run with it, you know, we've got a franchisee in Pool Care with 250,000 followers on TikTok, a guy in mowing with 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. So those small people who do actually do what you say can really lift the brand more than pretty much head offices can. So you provide all that information as much as possible, not in the hope that everyone's going to do it. But as you said, those 1 or 2 franchisees who really want to champion the brand and who just run with it like a duck to water,
and that's the definition of the definition of success, isn't it, Joel? With that you get there's 2 or 3, they can make an enormous impact for your brand, because suddenly it's not you as the franchisor talking about this at the time. Because when we talked previously, skeptical world, low trust, low transparency. When you've got the voice of the people who are doing it, telling the story, even if it's only 2 or 3, it's enormously powerful into the marketplace. And just on finishing on what I was saying about topics and examples, the third thing that needs to be is to remove the friction for franchise. I think you mentioned too, Melissa, making it frictionless and easy is a process for them to help them create it. So they might be able to do that initial really well of being a personality on camera, but many people then go with, God, what do I do with it next? So like I know what you do, Joel, and what we do for our brands is we go through a process of they upload those raw videos to Google Drive or Dropbox or wherever it is, and we edit it for them and give it back to them. So that's the other way to make it as easy as possible. And you can outsource that on Freelancer or whatever it may be, but you can certainly do that very easily with just a little bit of a process at the franchisor level to help them out.
Yeah, that's the main sticking point. A lot of people want to do video, but they don't want to invest time in learning CapCut or editing it. So you take away that friction. And then the other thing is they don't want to have to get everything approved all the time. So some brands find it very hard to know, but I don't need to see any videos from that when you give them the framework and stuff. So letting go of the approval process, depending on how big your brand is, if you've got 20 franchisees, you might be able to do that. But if you've got more, you need to let go of that a bit as well. But that's some really good points there as well.
And that's actually method to them. That's just before that's method to the madness to helping your brand alignment with brand values as well. If they're sending the stuff into edit, then you can control that messaging to a large extent as well.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'll just add on this one thing that I'm sort of seeing as well. It's called employee generated content, and it's starting to really pick up a lot. And it's where brands are now investing in their employees to create content that goes on the brand's social channels. So brands like Salesforce are doing this, Cisco, and these brands have a lot of money for marketing. You know, they could work with some of the best influencers. And the reason they're doing this is because it works. And so I agree, you know, Glenn and Joel, what you've both mentioned. I think, giving people the tools there, but then also there needs, you know, you can also get creative as well with how you keep the momentum. And I think that's a really important part because people start to lose interest and it's too hard and don't want to do it. So there's things where it could be like KPIs, you could spotlight the best videos. It could also just help with employee morale. So I think that's just worth, considering as well with how you maintain it.
Absolutely.
100%. Cool. Let's go there. So the last one here, before we get into a Q&A, is what lessons did you learn from franchise content in 2024 and what will you try in 2025? So Glenn, we'll start with you with that one.
I was going to say, who do you want to get first?
Yeah, we'll go that one.
The thing that jumps out to me is in 2024 that I've learned is, much of my background past has been in helping franchisors create franchise recruitment centric content for increasing their franchise partner network size. But it also flows down obviously into the customer level stuff as well at times. And what I've noticed in 2024 is that brands know that they need video content. And that hasn't been the case for many, many years up until now, but brands just know that they need to create a lot more content in order to compel and inspire people to be part of their business and to be customers of their business. And I think that's the biggest lesson that I've learned here, that the opportunity is there, but that brands don't really know how to do it. So they don't know which path to take. They don't know whether to do an agency. They don't know whether to hire a videographer internally. What do they do? So that's what I've seen a lot happening in 2024. Brands grappling with this. I know I need this, but how do I do it? And I think the way to do that, from our end in 2025, is to look at what supports you can put in place to make content creation as easy as possible for these brands, that they know they want to do it, but to try and make it as easy and cost effective as possible. That's the biggest thing I've really taken from content creation in 2024, is this authentic brand content, brands really getting behind it, wanting to do it, but not knowing how.
And what about you, Melissa?
Yeah, so I think just to add on from Glenn, definitely short form video content is that it's just exploded. Even more, every major social tech platform has short form video content. Even LinkedIn is now testing a TikTok style feed, which will be rolled out, which will be huge. And the reason why all these major platforms have video is because it works. So I think that's a big one. We're seeing brands now work with their employees to create content. So what I think is really important for franchise content is to really consider how you can inspire your employees and everyone to help create content, because there's just a huge opportunity. It's a really great way to get your brand out there, show behind the scenes, and there's so many great companies that are doing really well, like you, Joel, and what you post on TikTok as well. It's really interesting just to give advice and see behind the scenes as well. So I think that's just going to keep, that's what I'm going to see. That's what I will see next year.
Yeah, for me,
One
it
other
was
thing can
more.
I add to that? Just sorry, you go first, Joel, then I'll go on the end of it because it's your
No,
turn.
you go. You go,
All
mate.
right.
I'll go
One
after you.
other thing I was just going to add on to Melissa's there was one thing I've noticed is with so much content out there, and what I think will happen in 2025, but it's taking a little bit of time, is brands are still trying to focus too much on having all bells and whistles websites. So thinking that they're going to invest all this money into this website, the agency's building this website, it's going to be enormous. We can't do anything until we get this website done.
Yeah.
We're primarily, and they're saying, and I say, well, why wouldn't you do content in the meantime? Oh, no, we're going to wait for our new website. Well, why would you? Simple landing page that does that tells your story, does everything about you, and you're telling your story through every social platform that you're putting content on. I think that's the paradigm shift that needs to happen for franchise brands in many of their channels, whether that be for franchisees or customers in 2025, is stop trying to rely so much on this amazing website that you think is going to do everything for you, but just get to telling your story and your authentic content, your compelling messaging through all your social platforms.
Yeah, I agree.
100%. Well, two things for me with podcast work. We've been doing the podcast. I sort of dabbled in it 5 years ago, but I sort of last 2 years been really consistent. So we're going to get nearly 100,000 downloads by the end of the year, and people listen to our podcast. Well, it's all franchisee interviews, right? And there's a couple with me and Jim, and that's it. But people listen to it, and then they come into training, and they say, "I've listened to 30 or 40 of your podcasts every time I went to the gym or was on the way to the car." They're thinking about gyms, but they just need way more reassurance. And we tell franchisees, prospects, call as many franchisees as possible. A lot of people don't like doing that. So they will watch 30 to 40 podcasts before coming into training. And for us, it makes for a better franchisee because they know it's not going to be easy. They know they're going to have to work hard, but the rewards are there. So the podcast has been great. And from a content creation point of view with the AI tools or using a service like Glenn, out of an hour interview, you can have 20 short form videos, convert into a blog, all these different things really easily. So long form content creation for podcasts. If you want to create a lot of content and you're more money conscious, a podcast is probably the great way to go. And they do work because there's nowhere to hide in a podcast. Whereas if in a 3-minute, well-produced video with scripts and nice B-roll and stuff, it comes off not as genuine. Whereas a podcast, it's very hard to hide if you're not happy with being a franchisee in a 40 to 60-minute interview. And then the other thing for me is YouTube. YouTube for us, if people are searching about a gym's franchise, YouTube videos will come in the search. And then YouTube, we post multiple times a day. But we have people who, once they get to click on one YouTube video, they start getting suggested other gyms videos and they go down the rabbit hole and they watch hours and hours of content and it's doing the selling in the background. So a lot of the reason for our growth hasn't been from franchisors doing anything special because a lot of the time franchise prospects are sold from watching all the content and then the franchise has to do nothing really. They just get the layup with the sale. I don't get a commission or anything from it, but it makes their job a lot easier. But having so much video content available, when people look at you, they're not looking at just you, they're looking at 4 or 5 other brands. And when they come to our YouTube channel and see a daily upload or 3 shorts a day compared to another YouTube channel from another franchise brand they think about it's got a video from 3 years ago, it sends a really bad message. So I've had that said to me all the time with prospects in here. Why did you go with us? Video content, podcast, YouTube, gym on social, all these sorts of things. And the other thing I would say as well is that having a separate founder brand for the leader in your business or CEO or whoever it is, having their personal brand on multiple platforms will generate you other opportunities as well. So we generate a lot of opportunities via Jim's Instagram or Jim's LinkedIn or Jim's TikTok now because people will follow him as opposed to the main brand, and that gets people in as well. And then moving forward in 2025, I think we're having some really good wins at the moment. We've just phone Q&As with TikTok, that feature for whatever reason they want us to push it. So they're giving us a lot of views for that as well, and still a lot of non-followers as well. And then the other thing will be using live video a little bit more on other platforms. So we do Facebook live video for 5 years, a 60-minute Q&A with Jim every 3 weeks, but using TikTok live, which we've tried before, and maybe using Instagram live and other live video streaming platforms to see if that will actually help us generate sales. Because everyone hides behind, I'm not saying hide, but everyone does the old, sign up for this webinar and then watch some pre-recorded thing. When I think having a live video that goes live on TikTok, that people when flicking through TikTok get that all of a sudden in their feed, you can reach far more people, and it's just a newer avenue to try. So that's what we'll be trying in 2025.
Just to add on to that, I think YouTube's huge in Australia, and given they've launched, YouTube Shorts was launched because of TikTok, right? Because they needed a product to go head to head with TikTok, right? And it's just opened up so much opportunity for companies, because you don't have to create these long form videos. You could take a video that you've created for Instagram and post it on as a YouTube short. So I think there's like huge opportunity on that platform as well, especially in Australia. It's the biggest social media platform.
Well, I'll give you an example of how it works,
yeah.
generally. If you come home on your TV, I watch a lot of YouTube on TV, and if I've watched the gym's video, for example, because obviously we do them all the time, but on my feed, I've got all these shorts with the gym stuff in there. So if someone's thinking about your franchise and has watched a couple of videos, because our main job at head office is, when someone inquires, is just get somebody to listen to a podcast or a video, because I'll go down the rabbit hole and I'll just keep getting auto-serve those videos all the time. But I think you're right, Melissa. YouTube is so underutilized by franchise brands, and it's been now. Yeah, it's a massive opportunity, but you've got to invest.
Yeah, and YouTube's our primary focus as well for our clients. Just feeling, because we know whatever we create for YouTube specifically, we can cut it and put it into any other platform we like. And I think you mentioned an interesting phrase you mentioned a couple of times there, Joel, and I think it's probably even the key takeaway from this entire webinar is franchisors asking themselves, do they have a rabbit hole for people to go down? And I think it's a really interesting point that if you think about, do I have a rabbit hole of someone who's a little bit interested in my business to keep following and following and following and following to find out more and more and more, because you will be selling to them, whether it be customer or franchise opportunity seeker. If you don't have a rabbit hole, you've only got 4 videos on there and a couple of articles, and you just simply don't have enough to compete in 2025.
Yeah. Now in our franchise divisions for us, like, I'm happy to promote it online because it just takes a lot of commitment and work from brands to do it. And a lot of them don't want to commit. So just a real quick question then, Glenn, because ROI is the question you always get. And we've got our thoughts on this, but obviously we'll go, if we spend 50 grand on creating video content, what's the ROI? So I presume it's sort of the question you get. So how should franchisors or how should franchise brands deal with that question, or look at that, or how to sell it to management?
From who you're talking about selling it? So
basically, like for example,
we're going towards.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like the investment required, because a lot of people go, all right, if I invest 50 grand in building up this YouTube channel with content, am I going to get sales, or is it going to do this and that? So how do you sort of tackle that conundrum?
Well, I just, and this is a bugbear of mine lately, is that I think with so much data out there, people have lost their marketing intuition. And you just know whether the numbers are there, the views are there in the data, and you just know that people are watching, getting value out of these authentic stories of a franchise partner's success in the business. Doesn't it just make sense? I mean, you just got to think about this. Someone's thinking, I'm going to spend $150,000 or $200,000 into this business, or I want to buy this product, or whatever it is. It doesn't make any difference. You just, as a marketer, I think we can get back some intuition. You just know that this thing is a good thing to do. You just know that this thing about, how we make our pizzas and all our stuff, this is a great thing for customers to see, so they understand more about the business at a customer level. There are so many things you can do. And that's the way I talk about it to brands who are hesitating. And what I'd say to brands who hesitate there normally is, I'd say to go away from their preconceived thoughts of what they want. For example, we've done a couple of day in the life videos recently, okay? Which were more scripted and tightly managed and tightly storyboarded and everything. And those clients aren't on board. Here's the thing. I don't actually enjoy doing those ones as much because they're just too much work. In modern day marketing, those types of videos are just too much work and too much effort for low return from a production perspective. So if you can charge 10 grand to do one of those, but I could do a podcast for next to nothing and end up with 20 or 30 pieces of content out of that podcast, and there you go. So I'd just be looking for people who are a bit hesitant. I would start them off with some lower cost stuff that you know is going to give them high value, and high value is high volume of authentic content. And Melissa talks about authenticity and everything there. High volume of authentic content that is just genuine in whatever message you're trying to get across to whoever it is. That's where I'd start people and just start inching them forward, because trying to hit someone up with a 50K budget in one hit to do this and this and this, that's not practical. Start the small steps and start to show them the benefit, because they will see the benefit. It will take a little bit of time, but if they've only spent a little bit of money and it takes time, then they'll find it a lot easier to keep investing in it.
Right, from your perspective, Melissa, because obviously maybe your marketing budget's, we want to create video. How can people go around having that discussion? Yeah,
I was just going to say 50 grand is a lot of money. I think just to add on to Glenn, and also just like for some of the comments that have come up, I think it sort of just touches on what we've said about the authentic content, and going back to what I initially said about, we're in a really unique time where you can create just really raw, natural content. You don't need these really polished videos. It's just, it costs a lot. It takes a lot of time to turn around. The value is just like filming, you know, you get that little tripod, show behind the scenes, etc. So I think that's just really important to consider. The second thing is, I was just thinking about this as well, is trends. Trends is a huge opportunity. And for those that don't know, a trend is something that just starts to pop. You know, it could be on any social media platform, but what happens is that people start to replicate it. It could be an audio, it could be a movement, many things. And so one of the most, I think, well-known trends of this year was the very demure, very mindful trend. Started on TikTok. It was a creator that was filming in the car, very simple, and it just spread like wildfire across Instagram, across LinkedIn, even X as well. And even the White House hopped on that trend. It's very simple. And so I think also, you know, rather than, like 50 grand or these really big budgets, you don't need those big budgets to really have cut through on these social media platforms. And I think a big opportunity is the hopping on trends where using the audio or just thinking about how it can relate to your business. And it's a really big opportunity where you can get a massive like organic growth. So that's sort of how I would, really be seriously thinking.
And I'll just add on to that,
For sure.
Joel. I think the budget that you put to it should be giving you structure and consistency, because I see surges in content from brands.
Yes.
So if the budget that you do allocate to something gives you structure, so you can, over a period, structure about how to create it and everything, I'd be putting the budget towards that and making sure you've got consistency in volume, so you're not having periods where you haven't posted anything for a month or something.
Yeah.
That looks terrible.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's why I hired a videographer internally 5 years ago, and we upped to 2, just because we could move quick and we could just go bang, 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 bang and get quantity. But it's great to see that brands are using you, Glenn, with your stuff as well, because you make it easy and you've got all the knowledge as well. So I'm just going to open up some Q&A for the last 10 minutes. So if people got any questions specifically for Glenn or Melissa, please drop them in the comments as well. Now, real quickly, Melissa, franchisee inquiry lead gen. A lot of franchise brands in Australia seem to do the same thing and deal with the same sort of businesses, but I think now there's a really good opportunity to have your own media, sort of arm in any business to recruit. And Glenn as well, what do you think are the most effective? What would you think would be the most effective type of videos for recruitment?
Oh, okay. Love this question. I'll give you, I think showing behind the scenes is really effective with recruitment. That's one style. And I'll just give you one example. If you have a look at Accor on TikTok, they're a great brand. They're using TikTok as a recruitment tool. And I've started to see this trend across some other big brands. It is hard to find, Joel, you do a lot of recruitment. It is hard to find, the right people, retain staff, etc. So rather than spending all this money on finding, on recruitment, you could be using some of these platforms or creating videos that really start to attract talent as well. So in terms of videos, you could be showing, like behind the scenes. For example, I've seen hotel brands like the Ritz-Carlton, very expensive hotel in London, on TikTok, showing like how they actually do up the bed and how they actually do the floral arrangements, etc. So I think it's really, really big opportunity. So just to go back to that, behind the scenes, I think also you like staff members could even just talk about their experience as well, would be really good. It could also just talk about, like the benefits and so forth. And I think one thing I've really learned about this industry is that you never know who's watching you. And so don't get too caught up in the views at the start, because people watch and people might not like or comment, but they're very aware of what you're doing and putting out there. So leads can come from many different aspects.
And different types of content can be the thing that plants the seed, which I think people need to remember as well. It's not all sell, sell, sell. Different types of content. But Glenn, real quickly on that before we get to Tammy's questions there. Thanks for those, Tammy. We'll get to those in a minute.
Yeah, I think just remember that there are no rules, that you're making the rules with your content. I mean, when we started our podcast out, I was thinking, how am I going to do this? And I deliberately, I think I watched a few podcasts, but I really didn't want to watch a lot because I wanted to come up with my own way. And you don't need to do the Joe Rogan 3.5 hours. He's the biggest podcast in the world. You don't need to do that. So I went with my intuition and thought, for example, and I think podcasts is a good way to do it for anyone in their business, that, come up with set topics or set themes in podcasts and then start finding guests for it within your business. And then what you can do with that content, say, for example, it's a franchise owner journey. And Melissa there mentioned behind the scenes and all that sort of stuff there. That's perfect. So you do that franchise owner journey. You don't want scripted anymore. You want authentic content. So therefore, what you do is you go through that 20-minute podcast you did with that franchise owner journey in their business and why they love their business and everything. You find that statement that's great, and then you create this awesome video with B-roll or whatever it might be of them in their business doing it, but they're already unscripted, described how great it is and everything. So you're telling them their experience. They're talking about success. They're talking about their love for customers and everything. You can do all that. It's so much easier because you're actually getting it authentic without scripting, and then you can just make it look great there with all the AI tools in the world that can help you create any sexy content you like.
Very true. Now, we've got some questions here from Tammy. So Tammy's asked, who owns the social channel the franchisee creates content for? We're currently reviewing policies to relax control on social to allow for more authentic content generation. We're trying to define lines of operations. So the way gyms works, we've got an IP clause in our agreement, so we can pull anything back at any time we want. We never really have to use it, but I'd say the parent brand or the national franchisor will own. Like, you might have the franchisee has the access to the channel or whatever you want to do, or they run the Instagram themselves, but in your contract, it's have it clear that anything with the IP of the national franchisor belongs to the national franchisor, so you can get access to it, or when they leave, all that sort of stuff, make it very, very clear. That's how we sort of do it in gyms.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think just being transparent, just so everyone's aware. But I agree with you, Joel.
It's very hard because, unfortunately, with obviously Facebook, you've got the store function, so you can have a franchisee store page, which is what we do, but TikTok and Instagram, for example, we don't have that ability, and it can be very time consuming to stuff around with that sort of stuff. So yeah. Any more questions in there? Yeah.
Is it okay to ask a follow-on question, or
Of course. Yeah.
I was just going to say, like, when a franchise lease ends, generally, are you shutting down that channel, which has that particular franchisee's face, and they're very like prominent in that brand and that location? Do you shut it down, or do you? Is that part of the?
Yeah,
I think it's a great question. I might just hop on that one. That's a really interesting question. So I think it's really important to make sure that you've got different faces in the content. And I think I remember seeing Woolworths ages ago. I don't know if they still do this now, but there was just one person, a young guy that was always in their videos. And I always thought it's not healthy, like just always having that one sort of person. You need sort of different faces as well. So I wouldn't shut it down because there's all content there. But I think that, and you've done, a lot of work with creating that content, but I just think that just be mindful when content's being posted. You just sort of want different faces and different styles, and that's just going to help the overall brand anyway. So
yeah, I'll tell you how we do it. So with us, we if they resell their business, it forms part of the goodwill, the digital assets that they transfer over. So if they do resell their business or whatever, it gets just handed over in that. If they walk away, they surrender, or they want to go independent, we have a walk away fee, but they can keep their social media accounts and they can rebrand it to what they like. But we don't get them to delete anything because all their videos got the brand in it. So if they've got a video that's had 23 million views doing a Jim's mowing hedge, and they all of a sudden goes to independent gardener, if someone comes across that video again in the future or whatever, all their content's got the Jim's branding in it. So for us, it doesn't really matter too much. And we haven't had that problem happen overly much with us. We find that the franchisees who actually invested in that social media channel don't want to, tend to stay a lot longer for whatever reason it is. But yeah, we don't get them to delete it, or we don't delete the account. No.
Cool. Thank you so much for that.
Thanks. Got some time for a couple more questions if people want to ask them, or leave them in the chat.
Did Patrick have one, I think, sent through?
Yep. Let me just go to here. So the chat. Ideally, I would like videos in person with franchisees, not often practical. What do you think of inlines conducted online? Well, I think they're fine. If you go to see the Jim's podcast, we've got my plug on there. Most of them are done via Zoom. So all of them are done via Zoom. That's for the podcast side of it as well. So if you're doing recruitment stuff, I don't think quality production really matters so much. It's the quality of the information. And so that's why for us, it's done via Zoom. If you can do it in person, that's great. It looks better visually. And you're probably going to get, if sex comes in someone's feed, someone might invest a little bit more time into that if it's a better produced video. But if someone's actually interested in your franchise, they'll put up with a Zoom recording like this, really. So for us, Zoom's been fine. I do around 3 interviews a week via Zoom with franchisees. So, and it's been fine for us. But in person is better from visual. But I think What do you think about that, Glenn?
Yeah, well, practically, no doubt, virtual is a hell of a lot easier. But we took the position, I mean, our Franchise Everything podcast is a product. So we took the position that we would go and do it. I'm a personal, I much prefer to be face-to-face with people. I feel like and as you've said there, Joel, the interviews face-to-face and everything, you can create a relationship. I find I can make people feel more comfortable and more at ease and everything there. And it has a better interview. We will go down and we will do with a brand 6 or 7 podcasts in a single day in a single location. And everyone will just filter through and we'll get them done like that. So that brings some efficiency to it as well. And you could do it like that as well if you wanted to. But in many cases, if you're, it's just not very practical for a lot of people to do it like that. The other way is totally fine, as long as you just test out all the tech and everything beforehand. But you'd rather do that than nothing at all. Absolutely guaranteed.
Where good production comes into what I found is when we got a studio right behind you, like we like the Stephen Bartlett Diary of CEO podcast. We try and do our best to replicate that at a really mini level, but it's more from a discoverability point of view. So if you do that short form clip and you've got that nice lighting and stuff like that, you might get someone to invest in that clip a little bit longer than if it's just the Zoom clip as well. But if someone's thinking about your franchise seriously, production value won't be much of a problem, to be honest with you. But the package that Glenn does, for example, looks fantastic, and those are really good things to have as well. But don't let it stop you if you can't do an interview with someone in person. It really doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. Any more questions there? We've got time for maybe a couple more. Here we go. Cool. From Ali, quick Q&A in franchise sales. Any tips and tricks on content that resonates? MOF, we're finding it hard to convert. Inquiry is healthy, but we're missing content to keep prospects engaged throughout the nurture phase. Well, Ali K, we put everything online, so go check out the Gyms Group YouTube channel or Gyms Group podcast. That's our middle of the funnel stuff. So if people are interested in let's say that I call them seed planners. So the top of funnel stuff is like the short form content, or they see the Facebook ad or whatever. And then we leverage them into the long form interviews, which would be the long form podcast interviews or into our YouTube channel. Because once I know I get them into there, they're going to bring themselves along the journey. And those videos and those podcasts and interviews, because we've got so many of them, will convert for us. We don't have to keep harassing them with backlist emails and backlist SMSs. They will convert people. So we find that it's the long form interviews of franchisees and how well they're doing is the best thing for us anyway. That's from my feedback from our prospects in training. What about you guys?
Yeah, and I find that, and I said it earlier today, I think going forward, many brands that we're speaking to haven't got a lead problem, they've got a conversion problem. And that conversion problem is a nurturing problem created by a lack of content about stuff that the prospects are not being inspired or compelled to get involved and engage further with your process. So leads are coming in. There's still people doing it the old-fashioned way. Leads are coming in straight on the phone. You know, no one wants to answer their phone now if they don't recognise the number. So it just goes straight to message bank. You send them an email. They didn't open the email. You send them your great PDF kit and all that sort of stuff there. You put so much time into. You send them to all bells and whistles websites, but nothing's changing. I think we've got to realise that people are you've got to think about the stages that you're at personally when you're looking to buy something, is that you might make an inquiry, but you're not actively looking right now to actually want to talk to that salesperson right this moment. You're just gathering information and research. Sometimes they may not want to talk to you at all, but I think most times people want to do it arm's length. So you've got to put them through a process, a nurturing process with content that you would start with your FAQs, turn that into video content, and start getting them into a funnel, get them into the funnel there and step them through, whether it be an 8 email series. And then very quickly, those people who are decent prospects will identify themselves very quickly. If you've got them into a CRM, a process where you can see what their activity is online, you can see if they're watching videos, you can see if they're opening emails you're sending to them, and they will red flag themselves as decent prospects, and they're the people you can put your efforts into. Those who aren't, chuck them into a separate funnel, which is just your newsletters and that sort of stuff. And often 2 years down the track, they come back in because you've continued to communicate with them. So it's very much a content and nurturing problem.
What would you send, Melissa, to the middle of funnel? Someone's inquired about your franchise. What sort of stuff would you think?
Yeah, I think middle of the funnel. I think it goes back to the Q&A stuff. Like, I think it's really important just to be answering those questions and really positioning yourself as that expert in the industry or your field. I think that's really important. I think also just it is interesting, like people don't pick up brand phone numbers that they don't know, right? And I think it's just like make it easy for people to contact you. There's a little like basic things like with your social media profile, make it easy with how they can get in contact with you. So I've seen profiles. I think this is when I was doing the training, Joel, with you and the team, but it was like text here, or just however you want them to get in contact with you, put it on your social media profile. Also consider if you want people to contact you through direct message or DMs as well. So that's a really easy way just to get leads. So just think about the user journey. How do you want them to reach you, and just make it very clear. And then in terms of the middle of the funnel content, definitely the Q&A stuff is so important.
Well, that middle of funnel stuff's real simple. So this is I'll just tell you our funnel real quickly. Someone inquires about a franchise, they get a email, but they get a link with the video playlist for the division. So if it's Jim's Mowing, for example, there's 100 videos of training and all my interviews with them. And then once they're interested, they'll watch them at their own pace, right? The franchisor really doesn't have to do much. But from there, the franchisor will have a backlist email maybe that they send. And we actually train them on how to create an effective subject line, which is the priority for any email, for example. But then it's just really short podcast interview, really short training, really short podcast interview, really short training. And then they'll bring themselves along the journey as well if the franchisor not having to do much. So that's probably what we try and do. Is we know that once we get them into the podcast or into the YouTube channel to see those videos, it will do the work for them. But we've got the content to do that. If you don't have the content to do that, you can't do this sort of stuff. You've got to invest in the content first, and then that's where you can implement it in, is from my opinion, this sort of stuff.
And I think also just make it easy for people. Like if people are weighing up like where they who they want to move forward with, or like what service they want, just make it easy. People will naturally, they might have a quick search on Google, then they will go onto the socials and have a look. And I call it the social sniff. So really you just want to make sure that you've got like content that's up to date, like you mentioned, Joel, so that people know that you're like a legit business, that you say you do what you do as well. So I think that's just really important, and definitely check your social media bios, that it's like really clear on what you do and how people can reach you.
I'm going to use that term, the social sniff. That's a good one.
Social sniff.
Yeah, it's a great. People will check out your profiles. Absolutely. So, absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
Cool. So thanks for that, guys. We've gone for the full time today. So we'll just leave up the QR code where you can learn more about us as well. So Glenn, Magnetic Media, if you're in Australia, you'll know Glenn already. You probably might have even used him or thought about using his services, but Glenn does a lot of great video content packs for brands. So if you're going to outsource your content creation, Glenn is worth a discussion. And Melissa as well. You do training. You've done training for us at gyms, which is cool.
Yeah,
so you can do training, even though you're based in Singapore, you can do a lot of training for teams and for franchisees as well on how to create effective short form video, as can Glenn do as well. So both of you guys have worked in this area and achieved some great results for your brand. So if you are interested in anything with them, please reach out to them as well. And yeah, you can always catch up with me. I post every day on LinkedIn. I'm very strong in my opinions about video content and stuff like that. So if you want to follow me or see Jim's Group in general, see what we do, by all means, check us out. Cool. Thank you for being a part of the event.
Thanks, Joel.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Cool. No worries.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
So,
See you all.
Thanks.